Okay, hi, Wolf practicers. I'm here again with Nash for episode 2 of our mini series about blockchain supply chain. So the first bit of the conversation was actually very illuminating because it gave us a good overall understanding of the technology, where it currently is in terms of deployment in the industry, and which industries in particular are going to be mostly disrupted, possibly affected, and so on. Now, in this second chunk of the interview, I would actually like to focus a little bit more. Nash, this is an insight to, to what's coming to you, a bit more on obstacles, challenges, hurdles, and also looking at the state of the nation, really, where blockchain deployment is. And in fact, I actually might want to start from this one in particular, because my consideration about technologies in general and blockchain in particular is not that you necessarily have like a linear growth of deployment, maturity time, how long effectively technology has been out there compared to how widely adopted it is. And I believe this is a very peculiar case for blockchain. Blockchain that it's been there now for a while. And surprisingly, probably the amount of deployments, of implementations, of adoptions that there have been, they are not up there where they could potentially be in comparison to other technologies that maybe were out there for the same amount of time, but that are much, much more adopted today. So is this my impression? Do you also see the same? Do you also feel the same? And if so, what do you think the risk could be?
I think it's a fair assessment. I don't see the wide adoption that many were hoping for in the industry in this particular space of infrastructure for IT. It has been a challenge. I think it's multifaceted in terms of the problems. If I just for a moment pause on the technical side of it, I think the adoption, particularly in say Europe, North America, and where we have well-established infrastructure in place, I guess the parallel would be, it's a bit like, I'll talk to the UK, I don't want to talk about anybody else's railways, for example, but we've been desperate for high-speed railway in the UK for a long time. We have a good railway network and it spans the country, but to convert that to high speed has been hugely problematic. That huge infrastructure piece has caused much consternation in terms of all the impacts that will potentially cause if you want to switch our railway from a regular railway to a high-speed one. That big infrastructure piece is difficult. And I think that's where blockchain sits in terms of the IT space. We need to have Web3 in place. There are so many things from a big infrastructure piece that need to be not all in place, but we need to have that moving before we can really see, I think, a more greater and wider adoption of blockchain. I think other aspects of IT have been easier. The AI boom, for example, the generative AI piece. We already have processors that are rapid and quick and fast, and our computers that sit in our homes can process information at huge speed. So the AI adoption, I think, appears to be quicker, and people are asking questions, well, why hasn't blockchain? I think that's probably one of the big technical. I mean, I haven't even got into the issues of interoperability and integration with legacy incumbent technologies, but I think that probably is part of it, at least on the technical side. In terms of mindset and understanding, I think that's a whole other piece. That's the human dimension that we've got to get into as well.
Yeah, change management and the likes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as we know, change management has always been there, and that's something that the industry has taken a long time to understand how we need to get better at it, and we continue to have a need to get better at it.
But that's interesting, Najwa, that you called out the IT infrastructure, because one of the things that I noticed also, working with the Wolf Practice clients, is that sometimes when it comes to these very established, very solid ERP systems, the ones that we all know, SAP, Oracle, and the likes. I mean, sometimes it might be a little bit more complicated to integrate other technologies, for example, through APIs, or even in the case of blockchain, entire infrastructures. Whereas there are cases where lighter, so to speak, type of ERPs, imagine like cloud-based ERPs, might be a little bit more versatile in this. So I think, you probably already answered this question before, but do you think that, the existing legacy infrastructures are effectively also slowing down a little bit the rate of adoption of blockchain technology?
To some degree, yeah. And as you say, as we move more to cloud, as we sort of aren't encumbered by some of those legacy players, I think we'll find it easier. Part of my interest to work not only in the global majority is not driven by the fact that that obviously there's a great unmet need there from a patient perspective, but we aren't necessarily we were able to leapfrog, I guess is what I'm saying, in the same way that they leapfrogged from copper to mobile platforms for their telephone services. I think we have an opportunity there to do some of that. So I think our move to cloud is definitely helping that and enabling that, but I think we have a long way to go.
In light of all this, and in light of what you're currently doing with your company, what is that you are actively doing by yourself with your partners to sort of like address this kind of issues that can be noticeable out there?
So for us now with LydiaRx, what we've decided to do is to really take a technology that's been worked on for some time. So going back to your earlier point about the fact that it has been out for a while now, blockchain since 2008, and not to get into the cryptocurrency space too much because that's not what we're doing. The capability has been around for a while. It's now evolved. It's certainly becoming more mature. There is still a long way to go. But the project that we have taken on was something that was set up by the IHI, the Innovative Health Initiative, in conjunction with ERDF funding, I believe, and big pharma money. So a sort of public-private approach in terms of funding, and it was the open source capability of PharmaLedger that we're taking to now roll that out using the electronic architecture, OpenDSU, to enable blockchain capabilities to be rolled out to those in the global south. So we're working with a number of clients, well, at least 2 or 3 now, where we're looking to help them understand how they can adopt this to support their domestic generic manufacturing and distribution of drugs within their own countries. So that's what we're doing right now. We're providing a consultancy service to show them how this new technology can enable that. And part of the advantage that I have working with some of these countries in Africa and Asia is that they aren't encumbered by the historical technologies, the legacy technologies that we see in Europe. There's still a mindset change. We need to help them understand what we're trying to do, but we're getting that done, and people are beginning to understand that if we leapfrog, we can enable them to grow the markets they have domestically as well as for export. So that's where we're going right now, which is really exciting, and I'm privileged to be in a space where I think we have a real chance to make huge change and to meet a real unmet need for patients as well within those markets and within, say, Africa and Asia.
That's really exciting, Naj. I mean, really, really exciting times. I mean, it sounds very promising indeed. I mean, and so that maybe this is one of those cases where the change potentially and the wave of change is coming from areas that wouldn't necessarily be on top of everybody's mind to drive technology improvements, but this is really, really promising. So with this promise, actually, we stop here this second episode of the blockchain and supply chain deep dive, and Naj, we'll talk again for the third and last bit of our interview, where we'll be looking at the promises indeed. So we're closing on promises. We'll be opening up on promises. Thanks a lot for this, and we'll talk shortly.
Thank you, Mirko.